My name is Avery Collins. I'm 29, and at my housewarming party, my sister Jenna marched in dragging two suitcases across the floor. Her husband followed smirking as she declared, "Mom said we can live here." The laughter cut short, glasses froze midair, and the playlist stuttered into silence. Then, my phone buzzed Mom's message, "Don't make a scene." My fingers pressed against the watch my grandfather left me heartbeat loud in my ears. What they didn't know was that one message, one recording was already waiting to shatter everything. I grew up in a house where silence meant survival. The kitchen light was always too bright, reflecting off the linoleum while Mom clattered dishes louder than her words. I was the older child, the one who cleared plates, took out the trash, and apologized for things I didn't do. Jenna was 3 years younger, and somehow she never had to lift a finger. When she spilled grape juice across the carpet, Mom just sighed and told me to fetch a towel. "You're better at this anyway," she'd say, and Jenna would grin, her little hands still sticky. I wanted to protest, but Grandpa Harold would catch my eye from the armchair, a small shake of his head. Later, when Mom and Jenna were busy, he pressed a box into my palm. Inside was his old watch, heavy, scratched, still ticking. "Keep your own time, Avery," he whispered. "Don't let anyone else run your clock." The watch was too big for my wrist then, but I wore it anyway, hiding the band under my sleeve at school. It became my shield, my secret reminder that I had a life outside that kitchen. Still, every slight left a mark. Birthdays were the worst. Jenna always got the big gifts, like the pink bike with a bow on the handlebars. I unwrapped socks and a book of puzzles. "You're the smart one," Mom told me, as though practicality was a prize. Everyone clapped for Jenna's wobbly ride down the driveway. I stayed behind, watching from the window, puzzle book unopened. I didn't know it then, but the balance of giving and taking in that house would become the fight of my adult life. High school only sharpened the lines already drawn at home. Jenna breezed through on charm, floating between cheer practice and weekend parties. I worked 2 after-school jobs, shelving books at the library and bussing tables at the diner, just to save for college applications. On my 16th birthday, Mom handed me a thin envelope. Bus pass for the semester, she said, already turning away. The same week, Jenna got a used Honda Civic, complete with a ribbon tied across the hood. "Don't be jealous," Mom warned, catching the flicker in my eyes. "You're independent. You don't need extras." Thanksgiving that year, the dining room echoed with relatives praising Jenna's bubbly energy. "She's the sunshine of this family," Aunt Carol announced. My plate was already cleared. I'd spent most of dinner refilling glasses, making sure the pies didn't burn. "You've always been the responsible one," Mom added. Everyone nodded like it was a compliment. I swallowed the dry lump of pride and resentment and smiled. Later, while scraping dishes in the sink, Grandpa Harold stood beside me. He didn't say much, just rested his hand briefly on my shoulder, eyes soft. That was his way of saying he saw me. I thought about the watch hidden in my nightstand drawer upstairs. The tick-tick in my memory felt louder than the clatter of silverware. When college came, I left with 2 suitcases and a scholarship. Jenna stayed, tried a semester at community college, dropped out, then floated into failed business ventures. Mom always had an excuse ready. She just hasn't found her path yet. I paid rent in cramped apartments, counted tips to make tuition deadlines, and mailed money home when the electricity bill mysteriously landed in my name. I didn't know it then, but each bill, each drained paycheck was building a paper trail I would someday need. By the time I landed my first real job in Chicago, exhaustion was stitched into my bones. I worked late nights drafting designs fueled by cheap takeout and the quiet thrill that maybe I was finally building something of my own. Then the email came, year-end bonus. Enough to cover a down payment if I combined it with the savings I'd hoarded for years. Signing the papers for the townhome felt like touching freedom itself. I stood in the empty living room's sunlight, bouncing off bare walls, and promised myself no one could take this from me. Still, old habits lingered. Mom called the next day, asking if she could temporarily list the water bill under my name, just until she sorted out Jenna's paperwork. My stomach tightened, but I heard myself agree. When the bill arrived, it was twice what I expected. I paid it anyway. Jenna visited once that month. She flopped onto my new couch shoes still on and laughed. "This place is perfect. I could totally see Trent and me living here." She said it like a joke, but her eyes lingered too long on the master bedroom door. I brushed it off, but later that night, while adjusting the strap of Grandpa's watch, I felt that old chill like time was ticking toward something I couldn't name yet. 6 months later, my phone buzzed with a group chat message. Excited for the housewarming, Jenna replied with a string of emojis and dibs on the master suite. Relatives sent laughing faces. My chest tightened, but I typed nothing. Naomi teased me at work. Record everything, Avery. House tours, house parties, it's gold. She didn't know how right she was. The night before the party, I walked through each room checking the doorbell camera, testing the locks, breathing in the faint scent of fresh paint. I wanted to believe this house was untouchable, but the watch ticked steady on my wrist, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was already moving against me. The morning after my housewarming, I sat in my quiet living room with paper cups still scattered on the counter and the faint smell of spilled wine clinging to the air. My phone buzzed with photos from guests, but all I could think about was the sound of Jenna's suitcase wheels scraping across my hardwood. I opened the doorbell app first. The footage popped up instantly. There was Jenna tugging her suitcase, Trent trailing behind, smirking like he already owned the place. I clicked forward. A few hours later, after most guests left, Trent wandered back outside. He tugged at the garage handle, glanced over his shoulder, then tried again. I could hear my own sharp breath echo in the empty room as the lock clicked stubbornly shut on the video. I downloaded the clip, saved it to the cloud, and copied it onto a USB drive. I wrote the date on a Post-it and stuck it to the side. Chain of custody clean airtight. Still proof of trespassing wasn't enough. Jenna would twist the story Mom would back her, and somehow I'd become the ungrateful one. I needed to show money who paid what, when, and how. I pulled my bank statements, scrolling through years of deposits and withdrawals. There it was, the direct deposit from my firm, the bonus that pushed me over the edge, and the wire transfer into the title company's account. Every dollar had my name on it. Then I opened an email Whitaker had sent months earlier when Grandpa's scholarship trust ended. As executor, I confirm Avery's award was designated solely to you, not a family disbursement. I highlighted it, printed it, and slid the paper into a fresh envelope. Mom always said the house was family money. Now I had the paper that proved otherwise. Naomi called that afternoon. "You looked like you were about to explode last night." "You okay?" "I'm fine," I lied. Then I asked, "Do you still have that clip from Jenna's live stream?" "Oh, yeah," Naomi laughed. "She made everyone watch her tour the master bedroom. I saved it because she called Trent landlord of the future." "Send it to me," I said quietly. She did. The file name auto-stamped with the date and time. Watching Jenna twirl in my bedroom, throwing herself across my bed while guests laughed in the background, made my skin crawl. But now I had proof she claimed intent to stay. Marcus, my co-worker, came over later with a stack of HOA documents. "Guest policy is clear," he said, flipping to the highlighted section. "No overnight stays beyond 7 days in a 30-day period without written approval." He looked up at me. "They're already in violation if they keep this up." I could picture Mrs. Patel, the HOA president, pursing her lips when she saw Jenna's suitcases. She'd asked casually temporary visit. I nodded then, but her raised eyebrow told me she didn't believe it. Now I had her as an eyewitness too. By evening, the evidence piled neatly on my coffee table, the garage footage, the bank statements, the scholarship letter, Jenna's live stream, the HOA rules, and Mrs. Patel's name written down as a witness. I laid them out in a circle like pieces of a puzzle. My watch ticked steady against the wood anchoring me. I thought about confronting Jenna directly, calling her out in front of Mom, demanding she take her suitcases and go. But I knew how that would play out. Tears, accusations, Mom's voice cutting through Avery. "Stop being dramatic. She's your sister." So I sat back, closed my eyes, and let the evidence breathe. Every clip, every page, every line carried weight. Enough weight to turn the tide in my favor. The question wasn't whether I had proof. It was when and how I would use it. That night, as I packed the USB into a small velvet pouch, I whispered to myself, I finally have enough to make it public. I didn't rush. Anger would have been too easy, and it would have handed them control. Instead, I sat at my desk, the watch on my wrist ticking steady, and built my plan piece by piece. First, the legal shield. I called Whitaker, my grandfather's old attorney, and explained what I'd gathered. He didn't even sound surprised. As long as the footage is from your own property and the documents are yours, you're clear to present them, he said. I printed duplicates, stamped them with the date, and tucked them into sealed envelopes. Every piece of proof now had a paper trail. Next, logistics. I reserved the HOA community room under the title Guest Policy Clarification. Neutral. Undeniable. Naomi offered to run the iPad with the footage plus a backup Bluetooth speaker in case anyone tried to cut the sound. Marcus prepared a short speech, quoting the bylaws word for word. Mrs. Patel agreed to chair the meeting, official, impartial, exactly what I needed. Then I planned the bait. Jenna couldn't resist an audience, especially if she thought she was winning. I told her casually there'll be a toast about room assignments at the HOA gathering. She lit up, convinced I was caving. That alone told me she'd show up Trent in tow. And Mom, she'd never miss a chance to play peacemaker. I rehearsed in my living room, walking through each move. Place the iPad, wait for the denial, drop the clip, present the documents, then calmly let Whitaker and Mrs. Patel confirm what the law already said. I even ran a second scenario. If Jenna stormed out mid-meeting, Naomi would be waiting at the exit with printed stills to hand the crowd. As I stacked the envelopes in my bag, I touched the watch again. Its scratched surface felt steady under my thumb. I wouldn't raise my voice. I wouldn't need to. The HOA room smelled faintly of coffee and old carpet, its fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Folding chairs lined up in rows filled with neighbors who thought they were attending a dull policy talk. Jenna swept in late, dragging Trent behind her, her heels clicking like she owned the place. She spotted the crowd and beamed, whispering something to Mom that made them both laugh. I sat at the front, my bag at my feet, the watch heavy on my wrist. When Mrs. Patel tapped the mic, the room hushed. Tonight, she began, "We're here to clarify residency rules." Jenna raised her hand before the agenda even started. "We're family," she announced. "Avery's house is our home, too." "Right, Mom." Mom nodded, smiling tightly. "It's just siblings sharing." "No harm in that." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I stood, slowly pulling the iPad from my bag, setting it gently on the table. "Let's check the facts," I said. My voice was steady, almost too calm. Jenna smirked like I was bluffing. The screen lit up with doorbell footage. Her suitcase wheels scraped across my floor, Trent smirking at the camera. A few gasps slipped from the chairs. Next clip, Trent tugging the garage handle, glancing around like a thief. "That's taken out of context," Jenna stammered. "Here's more," I replied. Naomi tapped the screen. The live stream played Jenna throwing herself onto my bed, laughing. "This is perfect. Mom said we can live here." The timestamp blinked in the corner. The room went silent. Mom's face drained of color. Trent leaned forward. "This doesn't prove anything about money. This place was paid with family funds." I lifted the envelope and slid out a notarized letter. "Actually, here's the wire from my bonus. And here's Whitaker, who oversaw Grandpa's trust. It was a personal scholarship, not family money." Whitaker cleared his throat from the back row. "Correct. Legally, Avery's house is solely theirs." The weight shifted instantly. Murmurs turned sharp, neighbors leaning and eyebrows raised. Jenna's smile faltered. Mrs. Patel adjusted her glasses and read directly from the bylaws Marcus had highlighted. "Overnight stays beyond 7 days without written approval are violations subject to fines." She looked directly at Jenna and Trent. "You're already in breach." Jenna opened her mouth, but no sound came. The crowd's silence was louder than any argument. I slid the watch strap tighter and said the only words I needed: "You will leave tonight. Any return requires a lease and approval. Otherwise, you'll face legal removal." The line was drawn. The room believed me. They left in silence that night, suitcases dragged back out under the fluorescent glare of the HOA hall. Trent muttered curses under his breath, Jenna's face blotchy red. Mom trailing behind them with her arms crossed tight like she could hold the whole mess together. But the neighbors had already seen everything. There was no story to twist, no crowd left to fool. The next morning, Mrs. Patel slipped a copy of the HOA violation notice into my mailbox. Clear, final, enforceable. Whitaker followed with a formal letter confirming my sole ownership. I boxed Jenna's leftover clothes and books, shipped them to Mom's address, and kept a signed inventory. No drama, no shouting. Just done. The fallout spread fast. Relatives stopped commenting in the family group chat. Aunt Carol went quiet. At work, Marcus clapped my shoulder and said, "Clean, precise. You did it." For me, the real change was inside. My hand didn't shake when I buckled Grandpa's watch that morning. The tick felt steadier, lighter somehow. I sent one last message to Mom. Any contact about me or my home must be in writing, through email only. Then I closed the door and locked it. 3 months later, the house finally felt like mine. Morning light streamed through the blinds as I brewed coffee, the scent filling rooms that no longer echoed with tension. Naomi stopped by with her camera filming a cheerful mini-home tour for fun. Marcus leaned against the counter, already sketching plans for our next project. It felt normal, quiet, steady mine. The watch sat in my dresser now, not on my wrist. I didn't need it every day anymore, but I still wound it on Sundays, letting the tick remind me of where I came from. A text from Mom blinked on my phone. "Can we talk properly?" I exhaled calm. This time, the decision would be mine. Family should never be a weapon, and boundaries aren't betrayal. They're survival. I learned that protecting my space meant protecting my peace, even if it cost me blood ties. What about you? Have you ever had to draw that line with family? Share your story below, and if this hit home, subscribe so you don't miss the next one.